Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of the Father's Gospel Podcast. I am Codell, and this is my co-host,
Kyle Spencer.
Welcome, brother. It is great to have you on the show, man. We have been talking about this for a while. So today we're going to keep it pretty short. We're both kind of just going to talk about why we are involved in the Father's Rights movement and basically just go a little bit into the background of our own story. So, Kyle, do you want me to start off on why I got in, or would you like to dive in and share your story first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So, what got me involved is my son is 6 years old now. I just got one boy, and from the day of my son's birth, I have been in a unnecessary custody battle for my son. Everything from my politics to the COVID vaccine to false accusations and, my own political beliefs and all that have been used against me in the family courts as an excuse to keep me out of my son's life. And really, it made me realize, just going through this whole experience myself, that we as men, as fathers, we got to start really coming together and standing up for our parental rights, not just for ourselves, but so we can really protect our families and restore our families. But bigger picture wise, for me, and I'm sure Kyle feels the same way, well, I know he does, is we don't want our little boys or our little girls, but especially our little boys, because men are the one who deal with this discrimination in the family courts by far the most. We don't want our little boys growing up having to deal with the same corrupt system that we are currently dealing with. So, yeah, that's a short little backstory of why I got involved in this whole movement and why we're doing this podcast. So, what about you, brother? What got you involved?
Basically, what got me involved is having to go through the system, starting out at the system, and there was a 3-year head start that she got on me, and I didn't find out anything until like 3 years later. But my case is different. I have both federal, tribal, and state cases just for those 3 children, and so I didn't get the opportunity. Due process, which I'm currently in Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals now.
Okay.
And so that's based off of just justice, jurisdiction and due process.
Okay.
So once those get done, then I'm just gonna continue to shove it down the court's throat that, hey, you'd have to adhere to the law.
Right.
Follow the law. What's good for the goose isn't good for the gander. That's not good.
Amen to that. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm doing that, and then just trying to do is educate myself and do a lot of research. I just been watching this one guy's on there, and he has a pretty good stance on some stuff, and so I think I'm gonna try to contact him. His name's like James Christensen out of Seattle.
Okay.
So he's on a father's rights or a father's movement type of thing, and he's got, what do you call it? How I got custody, or how I won and got custody.
Nice. Okay.
Some of these jokers you have to vet.
Right.
So,
Right.
but,
Now, does he have a website or his own organization?
Yeah,
or?
I just saw him on YouTube, and that's a good thing. He brings up a lot of good things on there. Let's take a look here.
Okay.
I just had him pulled up. His name's James Christensen, and he's got a YouTube channel, and hopefully, if any of you guys get to see him, personally, I just subscribed to it. It's, what's it called? Father's Rights and Resources. So he's got a pretty good. It seems like he's got a pretty good following.
Nice.
On there, but
okay.
More for him. But yeah, he's got some pretty good insight on some of that stuff. And it looks like he lives in Washington, so he's got a Seattle area code.
I love that because it's nice to work with people across the country, but also like I know you and I have talked about this, like really we need to stay focused on working on our own backyard and building with people in our own backyard. And so that's someone we potentially want to maybe do some collaborations with on different things. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better for each father, and us specifically, is that you have to work local.
Right.
And then you have to spread out. It's the same concept as, if you can't help yourself, you can't help others.
Right.
So doing things locally and changing that system locally, that's exactly how like Robert Garza got his stuff done over there in Texas.
Okay, I was about to ask. Now, is Raza Garza, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the guy that has where his man, there's a guy I know of out of Texas. I want to say Dallas, but the mom's like trying to transition his kid or something like that, or am I totally off?
Totally off. On that one. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Robert Garza. Yeah. So, yeah, he's doing pretty good. He's got time taken, time given back.
Nice. So what is that? Time taken, time given back?
I don't know the intricacies of it.
Okay.
But I do know that that he's in the process of doing some more wonderful steps. So he's been shown on Dr. Phil.
Oh,
and
nice
stuff. So
okay,
yeah.
Okay. Sounds like another guy we might need to reach out to down the line. So yeah,
eventually. I think it's so many times. You just have, like I said, you just have to continuously. This is an ongoing fight. It's not just something that you can pick up, and that's why a lot of these attorneys make so much money off of us,
right?
As fathers, and because we don't know what to do, and we don't know how to maybe necessarily articulate it,
right?
But it's how it's the presentation to that. But according to courts, it's supposed to be there for a layperson. It doesn't have to be a bar certified attorney. It should because they throw the same things back at us later on. They say ignorance of the law.
So what is a layperson? Can you explain that? Like
just everyday person.
Just everyday person. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, but everybody's supposed to be allowed to represent themselves in court, and they always tell you ignorance of the law is not,
right.
Then, then if that was the case.
Yeah.
If it wasn't the case, and I say, well, I didn't know because I didn't have an attorney with me, they're not going to accept that in court.
Right.
So why can't you represent yourself in court? So it's like very. I always think about scenarios like that, like it's just like I forget the name of the movie, but they're in a mediation thing, and this woman's in there, and she's like, you shut your mouth when you're talking to me. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So that's the same thing happens in courts and things.
Yeah.
They say do this, but you have to have representation. No, I don't.
Right.
I can be an average layperson.
Right.
Joe Schmo off the street.
Yeah, and I feel like with the family courts and the bar association, like I think they know dads are exhausted, and I think they play off our ignorance and just our lack of knowledge. And like for everyone out there listening, one of my favorite things about my brother Kyle here is he has got just a really good knowledge of the courts and the laws and how the Constitution works, and it's been extremely helpful for me. I mean, he's been helping me out with my case, showing me how to use like the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment and all that stuff when making my arguments. And dude, thank you, bro. Like, you've been crucial to the operation. So really appreciate you.
That's what it is. I think last time I went to anything, it's like you have to be that spark or that light for somebody, and if they do that, that motivates them. Then that's all I care about. But at the same time, I'm fighting for my children,
right?
Strider, Sumerian, Blade, and but I'm fighting for them. At the same time, I'm trying to empower these men to do that, and it is for men,
right?
Some people could, a lot of them. I don't say people, I say women,
right?
The women will sit there and say, "Oh, well, you just hate women," and then they just have the typical comebacks like, "Oh, who hurt you?"
Right.
So it's basically to deflect and denigrate your stance on things when they don't look at it, because again, responsibility and accountability is a woman's kryptonite.
Right.
So,
And it's frustrating because, it's like anytime with the current state of society, it's like anytime you want to bring up men's issues, you're basically told to shut up. And I mean, we're honestly, you guys, we're unapologetic about making the Father's gospel about men's rights and specifically our parental rights. I mean, we're not going to hide it. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. And so that's what we're here to do. I mean, we're here to be a voice for that. And we really want to encourage fathers to really start stepping up and being brave and coming out of the shadows, because, again, like, nothing's going to change if we aren't taking the responsibility ourselves to fix this system. So, yeah. I mean, do you got any opinions on that or anything you want to add to that?
Just before I showed up for this episode, one of my friends he's one of my junior Marines, led him when I was in the Marine Corps, and he had this pretty good analogy, and it was to deal with a Pepsi machine. So you go to any vending machine or something like that, you put money into that,
right,
and then you get whatever you pick out of there, exactly what you pick.
Okay.
And you get that. So the analogy is, so I put that financial effort or whatever into that machine, and I get this. So now is it the machine's Pepsi or is it mine since I bought it?
Okay, yeah.
And it's kind of in the same sense, the same thing. You put all this time and effort into a woman that you have,
yeah,
and you produce these beautiful gifts from God,
right?
And how is it just because those things came out of her, that's hers?
Right, because she can't make those children without our seed, you know? Yeah. And
so I thought it was pretty good. It's really dumbing that down. It's a extremely dumbed down analogy, but it's still an analogy if you think about it.
Yeah.
Again, you have to what some fathers do fail to do on a lot of things though too, is that when they do this research, you got to look at the source. So make sure vet them, listen to their things, and make sure that they're sound people,
right,
first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then always verify it by looking it up and go through a lot. Don't just throw it out there. Well, I learned this, and that's the same person that goes to college and just regurgitates the.
Right, and that's why I think it's so important too, like when you do find information and you're researching that person, try to figure out okay, who's supporting them, what organizations are supporting them, if any, what's the agenda of the organizations that are supporting them or any of that stuff, because there's definitely a lot of snakes in the grass. And I mean, yeah, I feel like some people, they come off where they seem like they have good intentions, and I think you and I recently we're dealing with some people like that. We particularly cut someone out. We're not going to name names on who that person is, but that's just something that's really important, is to really know like who you're dealing with, especially if you're going to be working with them and possibly bringing them into the organization or the foundation or whatever it is. So yeah.
Well, they have to be verifiable. I mean, you have to be able to, they make these statements, they have to verify it with fact.
Right.
So, facts are obviously black and white.
Right.
Just supposedly like laws, they're supposed to be black and white too. But it's how, one, you have to make sure they're verified. That's the first and foremost. Second is that, does it pertain to your case or to you in general? And then how do you interpret them? So when you interpret them, then you need to definitely ask questions of other people that what does this mean? What does this mean? But so many people, and I'll just stick to fathers too in this, is so many fathers fail to do that and ask them because they feel like that makes them less of a person or less of a man. I don't get that. You know what I mean? So I've never. Knowledge
is power. So why would you not want to seek that knowledge?
Yeah, how to use it.
Right.
I mean, you can have 50 instruction manuals and 50 items, and if you only read one of those things, but you have, you don't know how to use it.
Yeah. So, facts.
So it's amazing to me like that. And then because I obviously don't know everything.
Right.
I mean, I know a lot more about federal laws than I do state statutes, but what's the order of precedence in law? Constitution.
Right.
The Constitution
Right.
is the supreme law of the land. Then after that is federal law.
Yeah.
So if there's ever contention, any conflict between constitutional and federal law, then they take constitutional law. So it goes on down the road. They could sit there and say, well, this state, adheres and drew from federal law. Well, prove it. Show me what law it does. Just like this gentleman in here. He's like, you have to have findings of fact.
Right. Right.
Those facts have to be based on, reports, black and white things. You're not going to make me think that, the sky is blue and the grass, or the sky is green and the grass is blue.
Right. Right.
Okay, if it is, then give me some verifiable facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
My eyes.
Right. Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. So, man, like, as far as, because you and I, we've done 2 forums now over the last couple months. We did, first one was with Van Winkle and Anderson. Van Winkle's running for the first time. Anderson has been a judge, correct? Or was he a commissioner?
who?
Anderson. Remember Anderson from the first one?
He was nothing.
He was nothing. So he's
he
running
was
for the
just-
first time too then.
Yeah, well, he's done.
Okay.
So it's already done. It's in November. So that was just like kind of like the runoff.
Right,
so
right.
only the 2 top ones go.
Oh yeah, so he's out then. So
he's
yeah,
done.
yeah,
So
okay.
there's no. Yeah, I mean, he's insignificant at this point.
Right. And what's really cool about that first forum is, I mean, me and my brother Kyle, we did a great job of exposing Anderson at that time, which we'll be posting the audio for that forum here really soon. And that's one of the best things that I've liked about the forums is when we've gone in and we've asked these people running for positions of being a judge, commissioner, whatever, whether you like the answer or not, they tend to expose what their true colors are. And yeah, sometimes you don't like what you hear, but you might as well hear the truth. That way you know what you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And so like with this last one we did the other night, Judge Poland, who's rerunning right now, and then this gentleman named Casey, which we actually have his brochure right here. Like, again, they both expose themselves, and one was in a very positive light, I felt like, and one was in a negative light. Is there anything in particular you want to go into about with like that forum that you'd like to highlight with either of them? Because I know you really, I mean, you and I always nail it when we go to these forums, but like I told you that night, like after it was done, I came up to you, I was just like, brother, freaking question of the night, you straight knocked it out the park. And like I felt like you really did a good job of exposing Poland for where she really stands on things. So I mean, yeah, I mean, is there anything in particular you want to highlight about that forum?
Well, I think after the first forum, so you had it was supposed to be Fennessy. Fennessy was there. Or Fennessy was not there, but he was supposed to attend. Fennessy.
Right.
You had Anderson. Then you had Van Winkle, and then I forget the third one that was actually there in person.
Poland was there. She was sitting in the audience that night.
I don't care about the audience. I care about what the people were
on
the first forum.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The people that were there that showed up were the 3. Gosh, I forget what it was on the first one. But regardless, Van Winkle came out, pretty good because he seemed very knowledgeable and competent that he actually knew this, but and open in his eyes. Whereas Anderson, you saw the candidate that was running, he was just completely go along with the good old boys network here in Spokane. Right. He said that he was a father and he raised his children, but he could never see where a father would get. So that's the mentality, not just locally but nationwide. It's this archaic thinking that women, because they pack the child for 9 months, they're the most nurturing and caring for. When it's obviously by the statistics, hands down, it says that a single father household is better than a single mother household.
Right.
And that's because there's more discipline, there's more firmness, there's more fairness, and children know what the basic daily routine is, because a man has to do that more than a woman does.
Right. And we can physically protect our children better than a woman can, which makes them less susceptible to predators. And like the thing about Anderson that night, like you referred to, he told us that he's been raising he said he raised his boys by himself, if I remember correctly.
I forget.
But basically,
but yeah, you're right. I think he did say that, and then he kind of came back and said,
yeah, like when he said that, the crazy part was like his response to my question was, "But I would never consider giving a dad 50-50 custody."
Exactly.
And that was just freaking mind blowing. Like, I mean, honestly, guys, it pissed me off when I heard it. But at the same time, it's like I was glad I heard it because it let me know what his true colors are. And yeah, so it was overall a positive. And with Van Winkle, he was very open-minded to the information that we're presenting to him, and he fully admitted that he wasn't really aware of a lot of these things that we were bringing up that night, and that he was open to looking into them. And so, I mean, I was definitely impressed with him. And as far as that last form, I mean, is there anything you want to highlight about Poland and Casey?
Well, yeah, but again, it brings up one of the things I was going to say about the first forum with Anderson is that it allows people to see the mentality that all of those commissioners and judges came through.
Right.
As far as the second forum that came in, and again, let me give props to the moderator Eric Coltrane that does.
Thank you.
Yeah. Director for Peoples for Effective Government. He ran a really good forum question and answer thing to get the judicial candidates.
Right.
That needs to happen. Hopefully, from now on, people or PEG or another group picks that up and says, "Hey, we need to do this." But in today's society, they always say, "Well, I got too much to do." Well, how about you stay 1 hour off of the internet and go to this forum like that? That's more crucial to your life. But again, you have these people that are apathetic because it doesn't happen to them. But once it happens to them, then they're like, "Oh, okay, let me pick up this fight."
But and what's really frustrating that is even like even with the dads that this does happen to them, it's like how many of them show up to the forum even through Zoom? It's like we should have a room full of fathers there ready to ask these judges, these people running for office, hard-hitting questions. And I mean, really, it's like it was you, me, and a handful of other people, and that room should be packed, especially with dads, because I mean, you and I hear it all the time, dads complaining about how they're treated in the family court. So it's like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing to stand up for you and your children's rights? I mean, we really need you guys to step up and just start being brave. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that part of that, again, there's ignorance and naivety, but then there's also fear. So the
right,
and that's probably the biggest one out of those three, because fear, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to do it, and then they don't want to rock the boat. But it's like you have a fundamental right. Your parental rights are fundamental rights.
Right.
Under the Constitution, the First Amendment, 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendments, and the 9th Amendment, as a matter of fact.
Okay, you're gonna yeah.
So you have these fundamental rights, and they're natural rights.
Right.
So, and the whole basis, like even the Supreme Court has done over the past 100 years, has talked about it and said in child custody, Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court is the top court in the land.
Right.
And all other courts, are beneath it.
Right.
Are submissive and should do this. But what you run into is a lot of these commissioners and judges, one, they either don't give a fuck, or two, they're not intelligent or competent in their job, and they don't know these things. They could say they do continuing learning education all they want, or they do these seminars in-house and all that stuff. Well, you're getting taught the wrong stuff.
Right.
So, the fundamental right of just like the First Amendment, Second Amendment, right to bear arms for the Second Amendment, First Amendment is freedom of speech.
Right.
And then you have certain things in there. They don't know that. They don't teach it in they forget their teaching, which are foundational laws and premises to further them in their career, or they just don't care, and they think, oh, okay, well, once I'm in my own little pond here, whatever the pond does, then that's what I'm going to follow without,
And honestly, that's kind of more where I lean. I think I don't think they're ignorant of this stuff, most of them, maybe a little bit.
Not.
I think they absolutely...
If they are, then they're incompetent, and they shouldn't be holding those jobs as judges and commissioners.
Right. To me, it's just kind of that, good old boy elite-like mentality. And why would they want the status quo to change when they're benefiting off the way the system's set up, And
yeah, the system is regardless of what anybody thinks, especially women, the system is set up for the woman to thrive in that system.
Right.
Because you have organizations like the Washington State Domestic Violence Coalition, whatever. I mean, even in there, right there, that's not equality. If you look at their board members, I think there's like 13 or 12.
Okay.
How many of those are men? 2.
Right.
So you're trying to talk about equality, but yet everybody that sits on your board, like I say, I don't care. I don't care how much it pisses people off,
right.
But it's women own copyright and patent domestic violence.
Yes,
it's there for them. I posed a question on Facebook the other day. It's like, what does a woman have that she can use at any time and get whatever she wants? And it starts with a V.
Yeah.
So immediately you're thinking, V, okay, a woman. She's the only one that has it. And so, some people were just, immediately go there. I would go there too, the same thing. But the answer is victim's card.
Right.
Once you play that victim's cards, that trumps all cards out there on the table. They can say that it doesn't, but those domestic violence laws, and I guarantee you in every state, favors the woman.
Oh, 100%. And the stats bear that out, whether it's child custody, domestic violence, whatever. I mean, you talk to the average dude and be like, most dudes, if they're dealing with some situation where their girl's hitting them, most of them are going to be afraid to call the cops because they know for the most part, if the cops show up, the cops are automatically going to look at them as the perpetrator, and so...
Yeah, that's the way it always is. I mean, they have, these... It's just... It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's believe all women. That's what the thing is, and that's horseshit. Equality.
Yeah.
If you want equality, then her butt should be available for the selective service too.
Right.
But you know what? The United States isn't going to win any more with women going to combat. I guarantee you. And that's not a chauvinist or thing to say. Men are just biologically stronger,
right,
and more aggressive and more assertive in that sense that they're going to get the job done. Women aren't going to do that.
No.
You know what I mean? What are they going to do? Shoot and then go give them a hug later? Say sorry, I shot at you.
Well, and I mean, you guys look at Kyle. He's a well-built dude. Like, I don't see any chicks being able to gain this dude's muscle mass, unless they're taking like insane amounts of steroids or something, And even then, they're still not going to be as strong. I mean, their bone structure is not as strong, all that stuff. And so it's just the reality of things. And we're not saying this to be disrespectful towards women. We're just about dealing in reality, and that's what it is, and we talk about dads needing to step up, but at the same time I think it's important for women who claim to be pro family, 2-parent households and all that stuff, and wanting dads to have more access to their children. We need them to start stepping up as well and being more supportive in what we're doing. I mean, what's your input on that?
Yeah, I think so. You have a couple women here and there, but I know from my own experience, like my mother, for instance,
amazing woman. Yeah.
Again, women try to deflect and denigrate and just be delusional in their statements towards you. Again, it's always like, well, what woman hurt you? Or, this, or the famous one, what happens to women too?
We've heard that in both forms,
yeah,
It
does not happen to women. 8 to 9 times out of 10, it always happens to men.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
right.
But my thinking is that they have, it's this, it really is, it's not it's a cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
So these women are given passes and their entitlements, not rights, but entitlements. And because they've grown up from a little girl all the way up to, the woman that they are now, they sit there and they've been given a pass through life.
Well, they've been told from so many of these, women, they've been told from birth, oh, you're just an innocent little princess, basically, like damsel in distress or whatever, and it's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before, like I said before, with my daughter, love her to death, but I don't, each one of my children are different, and I give them, that much respect and love that they know I all love them. They all know that because I talk to them like just normal people. I don't coochie coo my kids.
Right.
They know that there's a different bond between me and my sons and me and my daughter.
Right.
But my daughter, again, I don't give her any slack, and I don't sit there. Now I tell them like, hey, don't put your hands on your sister, and you don't let anybody else put your hands on your sister.
Right.
Because she's physically weaker than boys, but that doesn't mean just because you're a girl or a woman that you're allowed to do this stuff. See, that's a whole concept, and it's basically like a Stockholm Syndrome type thing.
Right.
You keep telling somebody, over and over and over and over again, they start to believe it.
Yeah.
It's just like anybody else,
It becomes a hall pass, like an excuse that they're able to use, to basically deflect all blame off of them onto whoever else, Yeah,
because again, it's accountability and responsibility. They don't want to take accountability and responsibility. It's just like it's everybody else's fault. It's just like this generation below that's coming up now, and I really firmly believe it. It's like 30 years and below, they have this sense of entitlement. And they believe that whatever happens, it's not their fault, which is a narcissistic trait, and it's somebody else's fault. Or why didn't they tell me?
But where the parents' role in that, because like obviously the parents have helped like create those type of children, and so I mean, yeah, it's just
because it's again, it's that's a product of the system starting out, that these children like if you have a strong mother and father, or either or that know equality, and practice equality, then those children are not gonna be raised wrong. My mother told me, is like, don't ever start a fight, but you better finish it. Don't hit a woman, but don't let that woman hit you. If she hits you, you hit her back. You know what I mean? And some women are like, that's crazy. Why would your mom tell you that? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, because that's a human. Just because she's a woman doesn't mean she doesn't deserve to get hit back. She's going to hit. She better, shovel out.
Well, and that plays into, this whole narrative right now going through society, especially the last 5-10 years, women screaming that, we're no different than men and all that stuff. And so it's like,
women have more rights than men.
Way more rights than men.
Prove me wrong. Where it says anything where women have equal rights than men. They don't. They have more rights than men.
Yeah, like here this is it, because I remember you telling me a few weeks back, and this had to do with deaths, like throughout war. If I remember right, you said the total number of women that have died in serving combat. Do you remember that number off the top of your head compared to men?
Well, I don't know the exact number, but it was off of a show, and then it's a researchable thing, easily fact-checked and verified. So since World War II, up until now, how many deaths have women incurred since the end of World War II up till now, in military service, and the number is like 17 total
since World War II.
So you got to think Korean War, Vietnam War.
It's been a lot of wars.
Yeah, Desert Storm. This 20-year war that we've been in.
Yeah.
That I served in. So all of these things. Yeah. Only 17 women.
It's crazy.
So, yeah.
And do you remember the number on men?
I don't know them. It's in the tens of thousands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just an obvious thing. There's, before that it was just like the largest was Vietnam War. So.
Okay.
But as a result though too, when we come back stateside, PTSD, and,
Right.
and even to this extent, the custody cases that happen, military men are taking their lives.
Oh, yeah.
They don't get to see their children, or the system, obviously, that's geared for women to prevail is causing this insanity in.
And that really pisses me off with not towards the military, but with what military men deal with, because it's like you go and serve your country, spill blood for this country, and then you come back and then they strip your children away from you, even though you went and served your country. So it's like, I mean, as I haven't served, so I don't know, but I'm sure, you've told me a little bit about your background. So I know you've dealt with the stress of being in the combat field, and then you come back here to the States, and not only are you dealing with the trauma that comes with serving in combat, but now you're having to deal with the trauma of having your kids unjustifiably taken away from you. And it's like, how is any of that? It makes no sense.
Yeah. It's kidnapping. It's a legal form of kidnapping.
Yep.
And the people that always that don't say that because they don't see it are judges and attorneys and things like that. Well, don't say that. That's a bad word. No, you know what I mean? If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, gets a duck.
Yeah.
So it's legal kidnapping.
Yep.
It's legal indoctrination of those children.
Yeah.
So, and it's all under the guise of, well, the men, regardless of whether they've been in the military or not, are violent.
Right.
So they're violent and they're aggressive and blah blah this and blah,
Me too.
So, yeah, TikTok people, believe me, I'm a woman. And
right.
So everything I say is true, but that's not the case, and so they're all slippery slope arguments, or
right.
they try to argue from authority. At points in time, I'm arguing from authority, but that authority is the law.
Right.
So the law states this. It's black and white. It says, you can't do this or you can't do that. That's the authority that I'm coming from in some of these things.
Yeah.
So argument from authority does help you out in that sense, like that.
Right.
But just because I have a degree in PhD or bachelor's or master's in something, that's the wrong type of authority. You know what I mean?
It seems like nowadays most of the dumbest people I know and most ignorant people I know are the ones that went to college and got all these degrees because they're so indoctrinated. I'm not saying every one of them, but I mean, and it's like what you said a minute ago about referring to, let's not rock the boat too much with these judges and commissioners and attorneys or whatever. Well, no, fact is we need to rock the boat and we need to call them out because we have put them in positions of power and they are in there to serve who? We the people. And so it's like they actually work for us and they're supposed to uphold the laws, how they're supposed to actually be ran. And so it is the American people's responsibility to call out their bull when they're not doing their job right and hold them legally responsible.
Yeah, and it should be. They've got laws there that are supposed to do this, and a big thing is that the best analogy is that it's the dog walking the owner now.
Right.
It's not the owner walking the dog.
Facts. Yeah.
So it's the dog walking the owner now when you're in courts, and the reason why is because we as man and woman have allowed these lawful authorities to get away with it because they can. You know why? Because they don't want you to exercise your rights.
Right.
They don't want you to know about your rights.
Yeah.
But yet they'll throw ignorance of the law as not an excuse.
Yeah.
At you each and every single time.
Yeah.
But they throw so much, they muddy the water so much, and well, this law says this and this law says that, this case precedents, and it overwhelms people.
Right.
And so how do you combat that? Well, you combat that with knowledge of the law and how to use it, and then you ask other people, well, what's this? And you get better competency. It's just like, you don't go to the gym and lift one day and then you're Arnold Schwarzenegger. It happens
right.
over time.
Yeah.
It's a repetitive motion. You know what I mean? But so many people have this thing. It's like, well, what's in it for me? Yeah, I can't fight every single fight, but this is a fundamental right that I'm going to fight. So what happens for one father is going to help the other father. So
Right.
that's why I say, what helps one helps all.
Right. Right.
So again, I'm here for fathers, in the system.
Yeah.
And I'm solely for that, because fathers, only 2 out of 10 fathers, let's reverse it that way, 2 out of 10 fathers, or less than 2 out of 10, almost pretty much, because I think it's nationally 81.7% mothers get the children. So it's
So crazy.
whatever it is, they want to be digital nerds or something like that. That's only like over 1.5, 1.9
Yeah.
fathers get custody of their children,
Right.
or even 50-50 custody of their children.
That's crazy, man.
So that's it's an epidemic, it's a crisis, and nobody wants to address it.
Right.
But I guarantee you, if that was happening in someplace else, we as Americans, well, over in this country they don't get to do this, they don't get to do that. It's like, again, worry about yourself.
Yeah.
And then you can help others. Well, the same thing here.
Right.
And
Right.
It should be equal rights for everybody, but it's not.
No.
Again, it's far better rights for women than it is men in every facet of life.
Every facet, look at the homeless population. The vast majority of the homeless population are men,
Ben Shapiro, some of these other, Charlie Kirk, some of these other guys that have done it because they have that social media platform, and their bigwigs have all stated it too. So, there's Jordan Peterson, love that guy. More men are in prison. More men commit suicide. There's more violence against men. More men are murdered in the United States.
Right.
Men have to go to war. So it's always men
Right.
are on the short end of the stick.
Right.
Whereas women, they just kick back and do whatever. You know what I mean? They want to cry for equal rights, and they only want to cry equal rights when it affects them.
Right. And who's building all the infrastructure around the country? Who's doing all the grunt work? It's men,
But at the same time, and that one, I get that too, because that's what it is.
Right.
But at the same time, since anything has happened, is like women over that time, since they've been, the suffrage movement and things like that for women, over time, they're still doing the same jobs that they wanted to back then as they're doing now. Child care providers, secretaries,
and that's not a bad thing.
Stuff, yeah. Then there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they want to cry about, wage gap things, and it's complete. I don't, be quite honest with you. I didn't see an infantry marine grunt out there to my right and left. I'm up, he sees me, I'm down.
Yeah.
Charging towards the enemy, or house clearing.
Right.
Excuse me, or doing any of that hard stuff, or taking out a 200-pound man, and firemen's carrying him out, while he's getting shot at.
Yeah.
They can't do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's so many, and so the thing is that, one, realistically, women are not as strong as men, biologically and realistically, in physics. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's your lane in life and your stuff, and this is a man's lane in life, that stuff. So stick with those roles.
Right.
But now you have these people that are, well, I can do this and I can do that. Well, that's been proven in the Marine Corps even too, that they somebody, I don't know, whined and complained about it. Well, why aren't we allowed to go on the front lines and all this and all that? But then there's studies that say if a woman goes down, because of the mentality of man, he's going to go help that woman out. Well, then he's going to screw all of his brothers to his left and right, because he's just going to do that one woman.
Right.
So
right.
Everybody's going to focus their attention on that one woman, and screw the 30 or 40 Marines that are relying on you.
Right. I don't think women belong on the battlefield.
No, they don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's
no.
Like, okay, let me do my job. You do your job.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It doesn't make you chauvinistic. It doesn't make you. There's gender roles.
Right.
Those gender roles should be adhered to. Does that mean that I don't think that women could be, a president or a big shot? No, absolutely not.
Right.
You know what I mean? But for them to sit there and say that they don't have equal opportunity for those things, and that's wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
If
right.
you have somebody that's a man that's been in the job and has a degree in that specific area, and he has 4 years on-job experience plus the degree for it, he'll lose that job compared to a woman that's been 4 years, same thing, or even let's say a master's degree of that thing, but she has absolutely zero experience, all because of a law that's called affirmative action.
Right.
So I mean, and that's the same thing. It's, I'm native.
Yeah.
But I don't think, unless I'm not going to be an HVAC person because I have no experience in there. But I guarantee I'll probably get a job quicker than any other ethnicity,
right?
Because they have to have their quota of Native Americans in there.
That's
American
so crazy.
Indians. You know what I mean? I absolutely know jack and squat.
Right.
So,
like, I know for me, and I'm sure you agree with this, like, I don't give a damn about the person's race when it comes to whatever the position is. I just want the most qualified person in there getting the job done. That way it's done to the best of its ability. And like back, like, I just want to say that, yeah, skill set, exactly. And like with women, with all you women out there who are like super, hardcore feminists and Me Too and all that stuff, y'all might want to start toning back, because most of y'all probably are not aware of this, but there is a lot of talk that they're going to attempt to bring back the draft, and women will be included in this draft if they bring it back. And I think that'll be a rude awakening for a lot of you.
Well, it's not a draft. It's
okay.
It's a requirement for selective service.
Okay,
so, I mean,
okay.
They can, in a sense, the draft was instituted in Vietnam, but that was just for men.
Right.
But now what it is it's the requirement of, you want equal rights women? Okay, well then once you hit 18, you need to go down to your post office or wherever the case may be.
Right.
And enter in for selective service.
Okay.
If there was a need for a draft because, of war efforts or something like that, critical skills then they're gonna, they should pull from those women.
Right.
They don't need to have frontline positions, because if they do, you're gonna screw up the whole concept of men out there and being more aggressive and assertive and physically stronger, capable to go out there at quick speeds.
Well, it's been proven that men, on average, perform better under pressure, high-pressure situations than women do, which makes more sense because we are programmed to be more logical in our thinking. And again, I'm not saying women can't be logical, but women tend to be more emotions-based when it comes to the way they think and react to things.
Yeah, it's the dawn of time.
Right.
I mean, even before the Bible, not trying to put the Bible in here, but the dawn of time since caveman. That man was in there, and he was the provider, the protector, of those of his woman and his children. No matter how many women he had,
God's design.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure back then, if there was 2 or 3 women like that, and there was only one dude, they're probably not getting jealous over that one guy. You know what I mean? 'Cause
right.
he's bringing them, protection and provisions. But we're not in that. That's the thing that we're supposed to be. We're animals with the skills that other animals don't have.
Right.
But yet, I think we're probably the stupidest mammals, because you don't see whale A or male whale and a female whale, and they're complaining about hey, I identify with this, and
right.
And,
yeah, it's crazy, man. I know. Let's hope that never happens.
Too. You know what I mean?
Of course.
If they didn't have brains, every single one would be drowned, but they just don't have skills like
they got the whole system, their hierarchy and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they don't have I don't know. It's really disturbing how to see that some of this generational stuff coming up and brooding. But again, that's because you've allowed we as men, first and foremost, have allowed things to happen.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it bleeds over into certain things. Take for instance, so they have, women crying and complaining about, they don't have rights, and we didn't get to vote till way back in the 19.
That's been a long time ago. That's over 100 years ago now. None of y'all were alive.
Yeah. So we didn't have that. Okay, that's fine. You didn't get to vote till then. But look at us as American Indians, as indigenous people,
right.
Any tribe in here. We weren't citizens until, in the 60s and 70s.
Really?
We were
Okay.
allowed to vote until then. But yet, we make up, out of all the minorities, we were the highest minorities to enlist in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines and stuff like that.
Wow.
So we didn't get a lot of these things. A man or a native man or a native woman weren't allowed to vote and have these rights until certain things came in.
And this, you said
way
this
later.
happened in the 60s, like started happening in the 60s?
Yeah,
or?
60s and 70s.
Okay.
A lot of it came with like some of the code talkers in World War II.
Yeah, I know about the
Because then
code
they-
talkers.
So
Yeah.
then they kind of established and set that forefront, not just on the battlefield, but also as equal rights under the Constitution and things like that.
Okay.
So people are. That's right there is incompetence and ignorance because they don't know that, but they're going to run with it rather than, because a woman doesn't want to piss off, or a man doesn't want to piss off a woman, because let's face it, what's going to happen? He doesn't want to hurt her feelings, or he's not getting laid.
It's that
So he
happy
doesn't want to
wife,
tell her.
happy life mentality,
Yeah,
and
it's a bunch
it's
of crap.
cuck. It's
Yeah.
so cuck, dude. I'm like, it's the worst advice you could give any man. Like, men, if you're out there listening to this and you buy into that happy wife, happy life, stop it. You're setting yourself up to get screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Not me. That's their attitude. Not me. It's not going to happen to me. Yeah, wait, buddy. You know what I mean? I'm doing this now.
Right.
I've been fighting this for a while now. 10 years from now, after my kids grow up, they're going to come to me and like, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? Where the hell were you way back when? You just thought I was
right.
like you didn't believe me, and that happens. And I actually had a friend that does that. I met him at the Washington Fatherhood Alliance.
Okay.
And he told me that he helped do the VAWA law for Washington State, the Violence Against Women Act.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he helped do that, and then come to find out, he was going through it, and he made pretty good money, over 6 figures. Like I'm talking like 200.
So did it end up getting used against him?
Yeah. His ex-wife, his now ex-wife, used that against him.
So
he doesn't
crazy.
live in Seattle more. He lives in Boise because she continues to do, the woman's DV playbook is to make, hey, I feel unsafe.
Right. No evidence.
Yeah. No findings of fact.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. And that's where that's an unconstitutional thing, because it's based off of hearsay. It's not facts. It's
Right.
not evidence that's, lead to facts eventually. So that's why it's unconstitutional, this new protection order. It has been and always will be
Yeah.
unconstitutional
Right.
until they change that law. You have to have hard facts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The sky is blue and the water is wet.
Yeah.
That's what I know.
Right. You know.
But, those are observable, or, as the scholars say, empirical facts.
Right.
So they have these things, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You can't tell me it's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Facts are facts, and
Yeah.
we got to deal
Facts
with the
don't care.
reality of
Yeah.
the situation.
Facts don't care about your feelings.
Nope.
There's no in between or gray. It's black and white. It is what it is, or it isn't what it is.
And as men, we always have to deal with that. I mean, I think most men are aware at this point that basically society does not care about us, and like for the most part, and we're pretty much on our own. Like for women, it's quite a bit different. There are so many organizations out there. I think it's like 90% of charities and all that stuff are geared towards women and children.
Yeah, 90%. That's a verifiable thing as well. Is 90% of resources are built for women.
Yeah.
I mean, I had, for instance, in my own case, it's pretty much how I was explained to several judges that dismissed when I represented myself in my DV cases, was that, whoa, wait a minute here. Mr. Spencer has contributed to this domestic violence, but so has, my ex that I'm fighting right now.
Right.
But in that domestic violence, mine has always been verbal. It's been like, or I've
Say
for
some
instance,
not nice words or whatever.
something to hurt her feelings because she didn't like it.
Right.
So she has called the cops.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, and so because of that, nothing destroyed, no kids hurt, not her, not me put my hands on her, nothing, just because she didn't like it, because I called her a bitch or something.
And
like
I'm
that.
sure there was not nice words going back and forth
Yeah,
between
absolutely.
So it's like, yeah.
Eventually people could only handle so much before they snap.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but women are constantly do that. It's kind of like Chris Rock is. I think Chris Rock or one of those comedians say it's like women don't argue with common sense and logic.
Right.
They argue to the point to see how much they can get away with, because then they use that, and that's a learning tool for them to see how far they can push their men or their husbands, boyfriends, whatever, how far they can do that and get away with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, before you start shaking the shit out of them.
Yeah, I've seen that firsthand. I mean, just growing up, I was raised by a single mom, and just the things and I love her to death. She's my mom, but the things I saw her do is exactly what you're talking about, you know? And it's just, it's really freaking frustrating. So, but yeah, man. Well, is there anything else you want to get into?
I think we kind of got off a little bit here and there, but through these podcasts, and that's the thing is repetition. What we say, keep putting it out there so that people understand that, because we're going to pick up some subscribers or some people that like the videos that don't quite understand.
Right.
But if you constantly repeat it in that sense, then they're going to say, oh, okay, hey, this is I need to check this out.
Right.
But we got off on off base. I think we were talking about the forums, but on the second forum, which just happened on Wednesday, I was not surprised by what they said.
Neither was I.
I think the clear, distinct winner for me in my book, my opinion, my belief is that Brandon Casey is a way better person for that. It seems like he's going to actually use the Constitution, because at one point in time he said that the way we need to look at these laws is through the eyes of the Constitution, and you filter that through the Constitution and the amendments and the articles versus taking what the state law says. Because again, if it goes down to it, nuts and bolts of it,
right,
and there's a conflict between state and federal law, what's the one that wins? Federal law.
Well, yeah, what I really appreciate about Casey is his support of conducting the law through the Constitution, and then also the fact that he's been brave enough not to refuse any endorsements from any of these local special interest groups, whether it's what's the
again, that's standing on his own skill,
right? And I was really impressed, because right out the gates he was just talking about how basically we need to end this bias against fathers in the family courts.
Yeah, and using the Constitution, that's what he said. So those were the things that caught me, what I mean, hook, line, and sinker when he said that.
That was so refreshing to hear.
Yeah, but is he going to apply that to his case? Because you could say one thing and do the other,
right?
But you don't know. So later on, if he goes to get elected or appointed, then that's when you step in and you say, no. This guy said this guy said that.
Right.
He's absolutely talking out of the side of his mouth.
Right. I mean?
That's basically what Poland did.
Right. She was a word salad, bro.
If she says things that are good, that's obviously what a politician does. But a judge is not a politician.
Right.
A judge is not a legislator.
Yeah.
That's what politicians and legislators on, just that. It's a synonymous word in my book. They're legislators or politicians.
Like when you brought up the Constitution to her, she definitely tried to kind of just beat around the bush on that and justify her reasons for ruling the way she's been ruling. Like when we brought up the stats with 23.8% when it comes to custody cases.
In the state of Washington.
Yeah, and F rating for the state of Washington with fathers' parental rights, and all that stuff. I mean, she did not want to address that. She's just like, well, there's all these little variables and all that type of stuff, and it was just the same old garbage. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
And see, again, that's the thing about statistics and data. Again, you have to be really careful about that and make sure that it's well known. When you say 23.8%, that's here in the state of Washington.
Right.
Over nationally, it's less than that. You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
So it's 21.7% nationally that fathers get their children.
Right.
So that's not a high increase, but you have to, if you say that both nationally and locally, then that's what it is. That's why I go on the national part of things, and then you guys hit the local things. But also that other local statistic too was the and I need to get the data for that. But Spokane County itself receives a score of F as far as custody cases, and that pissed me off because
Yeah, we're probably the worst county in Washington, I bet.
We are.
Yeah.
Spokane County is the worst. They're not necessarily per se a metropolitan. I don't know what the statistics are for that, or the population requirement.
We're the 99th biggest city in the country.
Yeah, so it's a pretty big city, and so there's a lot of things. You're not some hick town, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like Lind, Washington, and of course Lind is probably not a hick town, but it's a small.
I get what you're saying.
But
yeah,
you know, so it's not. I'm not saying it in a derogatory thing, but you would think that urban city or cities like this of this nature would have more progressive and conservative things that are work hand in hand versus way far left or liberal or way far right and conservative.
Well, and that's like,
and it's not. That's the thing. It's not a partisan thing.
Right.
It's not bipartisan. It's nonpartisan, meaning that nobody can hang their hat on that. The Democrat or Republican or Independent. It's a human right thing.
Right, and we know. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you lean left or right or you're somewhere in the middle. All dads, no matter where they lean, are being affected by this across the freaking board.
Yeah. You know, so and that's the thing is like you have to be able to get those things right, and that's where I come from a national level because I see that, and that's a profound impact. But at the same time, I'm looking at more guys like you that I rely on, and the Eric Coltrane's and things like that have give me that and feed me that thing. Just because you feed it to me doesn't mean I'm gonna regurgitate that. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take a look at this.
Right.
You know, it's like.
Yeah.
The National Enquirer when it used to be big, and the New York
Bat Boy.
Yeah. New York Times. Who are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to the National Enquirer because it fits your delusional state of mind, or are you going to listen to New York Times?
Right. I mean, I'm honestly not listening to either of them at this point, but yeah.
But so political views. This has nothing to do with politics.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
This is a moral issue.
Yeah. Whatever your political view is, it has no bearing on child custody.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, but again, back to that with Poland outed herself because she was sitting there trying to say that it was and what she was doing was minimizing my feelings and my rights because she was sitting there. She's, I understand your frustration, and it's case by case basis. Well, she knows me now, so that's the good thing is that she can't sit on my case,
right,
and be. She's going to have to recuse herself, and obviously I'd see this episode and say the form at the same time so that she's not in my case. So it's a smart move for me because that I can recuse. She needs to recuse herself for that because she's not going to be objective.
Right.
Not like they're objective down there anyway right now.
Right.
But still,
right.
It's even more for calling for her to step away and step out of that thing.
Right.
But what she does, and she's done, and a lot of those judges do, is that they minimize everybody, whether it's a civil or criminal matter. They minimize that thing. That's a tactic that they use. It's psychological warfare. So
right.
They minimize that thing and say, "Oh well, I understand your frustration." No, you don't understand my frustration,
right?
Because you're married, or you have control of your kids, or basically for the simple fact that you're a woman.
Yeah, and you're part of the establishment, which means you have extra protections.
Yeah, so you have absolutely no idea what that happens.
Right.
Excuse me. And again, it goes back to the fact that if their father's brothers or their own children are going to suffer this, are they going to be happy and take a look at it? Because at one point in time, they used to be that woman.
Right. Well, they'll probably be able to step in and make sure, they'll pull whatever strings to make sure that their sons, don't have to go through that,
Yeah, or for that matter, why don't they correct their daughters and say, that's a bunch of crap, you shouldn't be doing that.
That's really what needs to get done.
Yeah. You just treat them equally and fairly.
Yeah.
And you tell them, okay, this is what you should be doing as my son, and this is what you should be doing as my daughter. Don't pull this, don't pull that, because it applies to both. It's just, from different sides of the same coin.
Right, like we have no problem telling men, okay, don't hit women. Well, we should have no problem telling women, stop with the false accusations and, in courts and all this.
Yeah, telling women the same thing. Don't hit men, don't hit other women.
Right.
I mean, it's not okay to put your hands on something. If I'm going to defend myself, I'm going to defend myself. I'm not going to let man or woman,
Right.
come up and just smack the crap out of me,
Right.
and get away with it.
Right.
You know, you're done. I'm going to fold you up like an 8th grade love note. You know what I mean? So,
Right. Yeah.
but it's unfortunate. But you know, with Poland saying that and trying to minimize that stuff, and I thought it was disgusting of her to say this.
Oh, yeah.
Was that? Oh, I understand your frustration, but we take everything by case basis. No.
That's such vague talk, dude.
No, yeah, it's not what Article 6 says. It's not what the First Amendment says. You know, you have that fundamental right, that natural right, to intimately express your association with your child.
Yep.
And the child back to the
and
the
that's
parent.
Covered in the First Amendment and 14th Amendment as well, correct?
Yeah. Just amplifies it. So that's why, you know, a lot of organizations, one being what Kevin Reed is in the Urban League, is trying to get this 28th Amendment passed.
Right.
So that it does. And it's sad because it's already on the books, but you have to remind them by doing the 28th Amendment. I don't get that. It's
right.
It's you know, it's a basic, just like everybody needs food, water, and shelter.
Right.
Those 3 things throughout life. That's all they really need: food, water, and shelter.
Right.
The rest of the things they can provide themselves or their family for, and that's safety, protection, and things like that.
Right.
Through defending themselves or defending their family. So, people, men, in this sense, they don't look at it as like, okay, I don't know what to do. Well, you need to explain that to the judge, because the judge is like, okay, if you take food, water, or shelter away from that child, which is a fundamental, basic, natural right.
Yeah.
If you take either parent out, but mostly men, you're taking away a basic right.
Dude, no facts.
If they don't eat, the child dies. If they don't have water, they die. If they don't have, you know, the shelter, they're gonna die from that stuff.
Right.
You know, it's just like basically tell them stop breathing.
Right.
Or I'm gonna cut your oxygen intake in 50%.
Right. Yeah.
You're not gonna be able to have 100% of your oxygen. We're gonna take just like your offspring. That's a natural right.
Yeah, and it kills me. Like, I mean, like, man, with everything with my son, it's like, I mean, it kills me, because it's like, you know, I grew up without my dad, all that stuff, and what's being used against me to keep my son away from me is just, it hurts. It really hurts, because it's like, I know my son is missing me, and he's wondering, where is dad? And
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely. I mean, I mean, I come from myself, my personal thing, and I don't have this. It's kind of like 8 Mile, Eminem off 8 Mile, when he says all that bad stuff about him, and then nobody has anything to clown him about.
Right.
But in the same sense with me. So like, my dad, you know, kicked the crap out of me.
Yeah.
All this stuff until I was at the age of 12, and I said, nah, I don't want to see him anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I still love my dad. You know, and even then, it still affected me after 12 years of age. Like, why isn't my dad here?
Right.
You know, why didn't he teach me how to shoot? Why didn't he teach me how to do these things? How come he didn't teach me how to do change of brakes or do this or do some of the quote unquote man things to do?
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, totally.
I didn't get that. I got it from my uncles,
right?
You know, which were really strict, firm, and fair, and Marines themselves.
But it's still not your dad.
Yeah, it's still not my dad. Where it's that intimate thing. You have that. You know, yeah, my uncles were by blood.
Right.
You know what I mean? But still, at the end of the day, you know, I want a father and a mother.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the same thing with my children right now. My 3 children. My daughter just had a birthday the other day. She turned 7 years old. I've missed one birthday now, but it's been since February 16th of 2023. No, excuse me. Now 2 birthdays with her.
Right.
And so it's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 9, 7, and 4 right now, and then my other 2 sons got coming up in January and February. But the fact of the matter is that I still wanted my dad. I still needed my dad in my life.
Yeah.
But I can't. You know, I was for the fatherly aspect. I grew up seeing my uncles that way. For the male side, I saw my mother, who was firm and fair. But she always, again, and I put this out there, throw this out to any woman. You know, this nowadays age. Oh, I'm independent. I'm strong. I make my own money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want a man that makes more than I do. And you know, it's like, well, where did I find you, man? You were flipping burgers at McDonald's.
And we don't even care that they're
you up.
flipping burgers at McDonald's as long as they're high quality women.
Yeah.
You know, like
again, it comes down to mostly, basically a sexual thing and opportunities.
Right.
So if a man has by chance stumbles into it and that woman does that, unless she's a strong woman, again, there's probably only like 20% of women that do that.
Yeah.
And actually are submissive and submit in that sense.
Right.
Then they have, or women have more opportunities every single time with a man. Again, it goes back to that saying, a man will sacrifice his happiness for his family.
Yeah, yeah.
A woman will sacrifice her family for happiness.
I mean, almost every guy I've talked to that's going through the courts, like whether it's like divorce, custody, I hear the same thing out of all their mouths. Like, I tried my hardest. I didn't want to get divorced. I was willing to stick it out, and all this stuff. And I mean, again, what, 90% of divorces are initiated by who? The women. And it's just like,
well, yeah, because it's this feminist theory which is toxic.
Yeah, toxic femininity.
And again, well, it's not toxic femininity. It's
right.
just toxic. There's masculine, there's feminism,
right,
and then there's toxic. They're all
right.
different. So they're not. But in all actuality, that's where that came from, is a psychological term from prison, because there was men that would stab other men, and so they were like, well, that's toxic masculine.
Oh, that came from prison.
That came from prison. So it wasn't meant to per se be thrown out there.
And the feminists snatched it right up and put it in their propaganda.
Yeah, nilly-willy type things, But they have, again, a woman will have, my mother, again, she did not withhold me from my father.
Right.
Even though she knew that he did cocaine and beer, or alcohol, she still allowed me to go see my father, and vice versa.
Right.
If my father asked, with the exception of at school and things like that, because
right.
we lived in Reno, Sacramento, bounced around a lot.
Okay.
But when I came home, when school was done, and I had 4 or 5 months of the summer, he had ample time to come and see me. Hey, I'm coming to see him. Blah 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 this or, but he wouldn't show up.
Right.
He either wouldn't show up, or drugs and alcohol took the forefront for him.
That was revolving his life. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was better for him,
Right.
So and this guy now, I just don't care, man. He's I realize he's my father, but he's a stranger to me.
Right.
I mean, and he's got I think 17 or 18 other kids with multiple different, 10 different women or something like that. It's crazy out there. But,
I'm never getting myself into that mess.
Well, yeah. Back then, that's what, they thought that's what they called chiefing it up, so to speak.
Okay.
It was like, because I have this amount of women and this many kids, it makes me more of a man.
Right, right.
Yeah, right, dude.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to break that cycle, and for my first child, I wasn't able to. She's 27 years old. Her name's Maya.
Okay.
And so I wasn't able to because I was in the Marine Corps.
Right.
I was in the Marine Corps from 98 to 2009.
Right.
I got activated after my first 8 years.
Yeah.
I only got out, 6 or 8 months, and then I had to go back in because of my skill set, and I went back into the Marine Corps again.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, hey, can you come back in? It's like, you're coming back in, instant obedience to orders of the military.
Right.
But so I went back in, so I didn't get that chance with my first daughter. Well, towards the end, and there was another, at that point in time, she was my wife.
Okay.
But she was going to have a kid. Well, when I got activated, she had told me while I was down there, when I got activated, that she was pregnant. So, man, I was scratching my head, and I was like, what the heck am I going to do? I don't feel good about this.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to make it back from this one this time.
Yeah.
I'll marry her in case I die, because the battalion I was going with was 90% green, which means that they didn't know, they had no experience.
Oh, okay.
They had limited to no experience. I had 8 years experience with me.
Wow.
So deployments under me, so that I could I knew, so I was only out for 8 months.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's not like I just brain dumped everything that I learned in the Marine Corps.
Right, right.
After all, I mean, you've been over to my house. Look,
dude,
like
his resume is impressive, folks. Like, yeah, and I mean, your family in general. What? How many generations has your family served in the military?
I'm a 4th generation Marine. I was either going to be 4th generation Marine or 3rd generation Army. So
yeah,
4th generation.
Oh, so you got Marines and Army guys in your family?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So
okay.
you know, my great grandpa, my grandpa, my uncle, then me, and
yeah,
then my other uncles on the other, you know, the other ones served, and just recently, and hopefully he gets it eventually. My relative, he'll probably be for Yakima area in Washington. He'll probably be the first native for that tribe to be bestowed upon him the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Oh, wow!
Posthumously. You know
okay,
I mean?
yeah.
So I don't know if that means me that will get it, or how they're going to do it, but you know that's still a great achievement.
Yeah, that's
get a Congressional Medal of Honor, and his name was Ernest Spencer.
Okay.
So and he was a Marine.
Okay.
So
is his picture on your wall because you got
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got all my SEER school stuff and all that. You know.
Right.
Discharge. And that. But yeah, it's amazing to me how, you know, where I've come in life and my plans in life. But you know, back to my children, my other 2 children, it's like I didn't have, you know, I thought what I was doing was the right thing, so I just went ahead and married her.
Yeah.
Not because I really loved her, you know what I mean? We knew each other before, but love has to grow. You can't just sit there and date somebody for a month or 2 months and all of a sudden say, I love you.
Yeah, it's not this whole Disney thing, you know, that I think a lot of people kind of think that's how love is, even though they should know better.
Well, they're lying to themselves when they sit there and say, I love you right away. The first and foremost is, come on. As human beings, that's the first thing. It's like, you know, it's lust.
Right.
It's not, hey, I love you right away unconditionally. No, man, they're not dogs, and you're not a dog.
You got to build that trust with someone. I mean, you really freaking do.
Yeah.
That's why I move slow now with relationships. I just take my time. Like.
Yeah. You know, so I did it, and I didn't want to get married to her, but you know, I thought that was the responsible thing to do in case I did make it back.
Right.
So you know, I got out in 2009 after that, and as I was getting out, like I said, I was trying to get out. And had I known that she was going to want a divorce, I would have just stayed in the damn Marine Corps. But you know, we make choices in life. If I'd made that choice, I probably would have been with my current ex that I have my last 3 children with.
Right.
Then, so that's. You know,
well, and by you like marrying her when you're going back into the Marines, that like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that guarantees that if something would have happened to you, then she would have like the benefits.
At that point in time, she would have had all the benefits, and then she would have got my life insurance, which I think
so
it built up.
Being a responsible man in some way,
like
you know,
650,000 if I died.
Okay,
so. That's what it was, you know, because ultimately I'm no longer there. I can't provide, protect, or do that stuff. And obviously money doesn't take away, in no way, shape, or form, replace anybody's life.
Of course.
Military member's life, what they've done to their family, or their kids, or wives, or things like that. But again, that was, I thought, my responsibility.
Yeah.
So when I had that, it was okay. But then when I got back, you know, it was like, you know, let's try this thing, do this, do that. Went to work one day.
Now, this is your first wife?
This is my first and only wife that I've had.
Okay.
But again, you know, like I said, my oldest one was with a woman that, you know, before I got into the Marine Corps, and I couldn't do anything with her because I was in the Marine Corps.
Right.
The second one, who was my wife, I married because out of that responsibility. She wanted a divorce. Well, when we had the divorce, and then I filed. And I filed first in the joke Yakima Nation Tribal Court, which is such a joke. Most of these reservation courts are jokes anyway.
Right.
You know, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I just came home from work one day and she had all her stuff packed up, and she was moved back to her reservation.
Like, was she already gone?
Yeah. She was a tribal member of another reservation. So these women know what they're doing, especially tribal women.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not good women.
Right.
You know, they're not. There's very rare. Again, 20% of women are probably the ones that are going to be put aside their bitterness and their selfishness and think about the kids first and foremost.
Right.
So that's very, very, very few women. I'd even say 9 out of 10 women are going to use their child as a weapon.
Yeah, it's, and I mean, and I can't even just blame the women. Like, it's men's fault as well why women are like this now, because, again, we've allowed this to go on for several decades now, and it's just, men, when we're going to stop doing this? Like, we have to be as active and engaged as the other side is when it comes to standing up for our rights, being politically involved, and protecting our children, because, I mean, we just haven't. That's why we're getting screwed over so bad.
Yeah. So with my other 2 children, or the second and third child that I've had, they just moved to a reservation. But I wish I knew then what I know now.
Yeah.
I would have fought more for those children, because I would, again, just getting out, having to process getting out and process these emotions, go to PTSD treatment.
It's a lot, dude.
And alcohol abuse treatment, and get these things done so that I could be a better person for myself, because I wasn't doing it for anybody else. I wasn't doing it for my mom or my children. I was doing it for myself, because if I don't take care of myself, heal myself, I can't
help others, take care of others.
So
yeah,
I did that out of my need for it.
Right.
And so I didn't know any of that stuff then as what I know now.
Yeah.
And that's not age, but it's through experience. And the more experience you get on it, of course, if you live a longer life, you're going to experience a lot more stuff. Well, now that I've experienced this, I would have wished I could have went back to those children. But that's been, at this point in time, they're 14 and 12. Okay. I'm not going to try to go in there and throw a monkey wrench in the thing and try to do that. Just hopefully they'll know, this is what I did for you back then.
Yeah.
And whether they want to be around me or not, that's on them at that point in time. But by that time, they've already been brainwashed by their mother, and that's what a lot of women do.
Right.
A lot of mothers do is they brainwash their children for that.
Yeah.
They don't talk good about their fathers. They can sit there and say that they do, but they don't.
No, they don't. And
very rare. I'd say very rare.
Yeah. I mean, there's women out there that, they get divorced or whatever. There is good women. And again, that's why we need good women. We need y'all to start being more vocal, as well as we're always calling out men. We need the good women out there to start standing with us and calling out this madness, because these crazy women are making y'all look bad, and it's a big reason why so many men are checking out of relationships right now. So.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's the same thing. It's like there's no benefit for a man to be married.
No.
Absolutely not. So don't get married, or if you do get married, get a prenuptial agreement.
And get a good prenup.
And make sure you do it in front of, at this point in time, probably psychologists and a good attorney that's going to put it in there, so that then you have the more so-called professionals, psychologists or things like that are sitting in while she's doing the thing. She can't come back and say, oh, well, I signed it under duress.
Right.
And then, again, the courts and the judges, oh my God, you poor thing.
Well, and I'd even say, don't even, because, the state is involved in marriage, the government. I'd say even don't even get an official marriage certificate if you can, don't get married through the state. If there's a way to do that, and still get a prenup as well, but keep the state out of it. If you can do that.
Yeah, again, there's financial incentives, at the end
right.
of the year for taxes and filing stuff. And so they always incentivize it too on top of the children. So it's incentivized for it. So it's hard, It would be hard for an individual not to do that versus a government, which is, based on greed and money and things like
right.
that. So,
and they're spending all our money.
Right. And so, it's better for you to, if you're going to do that, that's a long haul. You got to set things up just right, a trust fund and make sure that you put her on things. Well, who is this? Well, we're married. Okay, well, give me that declaration of marriage, give me that marriage certificate. Well, we're not married. We're married in front of, a priest or something like that. Right. And you have that. Well, that's just as good. You don't have to have a governmental marriage.
Right.
But the only reason behind that is because it's for finances.
Yep.
It's the same thing with children. It's like they don't think the best interest of the children at all when they're doing these child support orders. So
right.
When you have the Title 4D of the Social Security Act in there, and incentivizing states for the state's best interest, because that's what they seek there in the first and foremost is
right.
What's in the best interest of the state. Well, the best interest of the state is to give one parent the children. And,
right.
And again, 80% of the time, that's the mother.
Right.
So, they still have this archaic thinking that it's Leave It to Beaver days in their 50s and 60s, and that these women don't have, any jobs or skill set or anything like that. That's a bunch of crap.
I wouldn't mind it being more like the 50s and 60s again in that aspect. Like,
well, not so much. I mean, it wouldn't be bad. One parent had, prior to her doing this false allegations in order for her to securing the protection order, I stayed at home.
Right.
Because I have VA disability for that. So it allowed me that opportunity to stay home with my children. So I was a primary caregiver.
Right.
But she knew exactly the system, just like a lot of these women do. A lot, 70% is low. That's just, probably being nice to them. But a lot of women know, like, oh, okay, well, I need this, you know what I mean? And they want to be independent. Well, if you're so independent, then don't ask for child support. Don't ask for alimony.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? So you're going to, basically what it boils down to is that they're going to steal from the man in order to make the mother so-called financially fit.
Right, right.
So, wait a minute. She makes more than me. You're going to charge me child support to make her financially fit to take care of our children. If you can't do that, give me the children. I can do it on my own.
Right.
I can take them to school, pick them up from school.
And what's crazy is you're the primary caregiver, and they always love to use that in advantage
for women.
Women, yeah. But
they're the nurturers.
Yeah, but because you're a man, that all goes out the freaking window.
They're not going to hear any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They'll if the woman was the primary caregiver, they're going to say that. Well, what you did this, you did that, and so that's why we're giving it to you, because you're the primary caregiver. But let that happen to a man, like in my case, where I'm the primary caregiver.
Right.
And I'm, doing all the things, taking them to their, medical stuff. My first son, he had pneumonia. She didn't want to come back from a casino.
Oh, geez.
You know what I mean? And told me at, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night to run to the store. And, I'm in, country town at that point in time when we were visiting family, to go all the way up to Yakima to grab milk and formula, which may or may not be good for him. But I could hear it. And then I just finally took him in, because I was worried about him, and I knew this is not right.
Yeah.
And come to find out, he had pneumonia, and that's fatal.
Right, right.
Fatal.
How old was he at the time?
He was only like 8-9 months old.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
so
that's
she
dangerous.
was more worried about the casino and doing that and spending time with her family, and trying to say, oh, well, you just want to keep me from my family. No, I'm not trying to isolate you or whatever the case may be, but you need to be home for your children. If you're not going to be, then we need to do this. I wanted her to be there with me at the doctor when we got it, but she didn't want to.
Yeah.
She was just, oh, well, you just don't want me to be out with my family. So
no, I don't want you spending all your time at the casino and all that stuff. I want you here with it's your children and me.
Yeah, it's to start a fight so that they have an excuse and a reason to go out and do whatever the hell they want to do.
Right.
That's all it was for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when I took him in and had this and got all this stuff, like she was just like, oh my God, you're being so dramatic. I was there from 12 o'clock at night till 6:30 the next day with my child.
Yeah.
Strider.
Yeah.
And did all that. And I'm going to bring that up to him. People say, oh, well, you shouldn't tell kids this and you shouldn't tell kids. No, I'm going to tell them everything that she did wrong, even the stuff that has now, and I'm keeping all that court paperwork. So
that's what
I'm
doing.
Kids do, and they get old enough to comprehend and understand that stuff. Here, this is what your mother did.
Right.
And I don't care if she tried to come back with me or not, or ask me for forgiveness. And we started a thing again. I'm going to show our children this. This is what you did. This is why I was out of their life for almost 2 years now.
Well, and that's such a manipulation tactics the court love to use, and like they love to emphasize, oh, don't talk about this or that with the children, and it's like, so you want me to hide the truth from the child. So you
just throw it back on them. You want me to perjure myself towards my children?
Right.
What you're saying, Judge?
Yeah. It's like,
I don't even call them. I swear to God, I'm not going to call them judges anymore. They can sit there and say I'm being disrespectful. It's not. They're public servants.
They are public servants
first and foremost. And,
right.
And if you think about little things and that just get to you anyway too, like if you go into courts and things like that, they have that gold fringe around that. That's a maritime flag. So that's supposed to be in maritime law. So why are you flying a flag for maritime with the gold fringe.
Yeah, because maritime, that's like sea law, right? Like,
no, it's not sea law. It's yeah, that's
okay.
What term? But I mean, it's martial law.
Oh, makes sense why they operate. Yeah.
So when you have that stuff, that's people don't understand that, and I'm not trying to say that that's but do the proper flag when you're in the courtroom, and then they tell you, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. All rise, when they come and go.
Like there's some they're
how are we supposed to, so you're subservient?
Yeah, like they're the kings and queens.
We the people, for the people, and by the people.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
We the people, for the people, by the people.
Yeah, with their black robes and all that.
That's not. It's for the people and by the people.
Yeah.
So you should be standing up when I walk the hell in.
Right.
Especially somebody like me or any other veteran that walks in that courtroom.
Right.
So, until they catch me not standing up for it, they give me a contempt of court. Ooh, what's that? 1 day in jail, and then go in there, and then you explain to them why. Well, then you just do it. And
wait, can they give you contempt of court for not rising?
Yeah, but see, again, that's a fear tactic that they put on people, because think about it this way: if you actually fought for it, if fathers didn't pay child support, and these simps and everybody else will say, well, that's your responsibility. Well, it's the responsibility of the mother too to provide those children to me so that they have a good upbringing from a father's point of view. One child or however many children you have in 2 homes, that's fine.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't take away, and people want to say, oh, okay, well, that's going to disturb their living. Well, most men that I've known have moved closer towards that child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In order to be in that child's life. And some of them don't have the logistics or opportunity to do that because they went, just like if you picked up and you went over there to Mercer Island or Seattle, you're probably going to fail and be homeless, man.
Well, dude, I mean, I told you this before, like my son's mother disappeared with my son, which was illegally funded by the state of Oregon. They paid her to move up here to Spokane. It took me a year and a half to figure out
the victim's card.
Yeah, took me a year and a half to figure out where he was. As soon as I figured out where he was, I spent another year saving up money so I could make the move. Moved up here within 3 months of living up here. Then Commissioner Corrupt Jacqueline High Edward gave the mom the okay to move another
relocate.
Yeah, and that's like 200-300 miles from here, something like that.
They're not supposed to do that. That's why I tell people you need to file in federal court. Because
and that's what we're going to be doing.
You flood the system, and they're not frivolous suits.
No.
Some of them may be not articulated the best, but according to the law, it says anybody that's in there, unless they're incompetent, like meaning they're in the care of somebody else in a mental ward or something like that, that's probably doesn't register for incompetence.
Right.
They're conservative. There's some kind of conservatorship for them. But you should be able to go into federal court and file your complaint. Yeah. And so, and that's what it is. It's not a complaint, but it's an actual tort. It's a lawsuit. You're making this complaint, and they're violating this. First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendment. These things like that. So you go in there and you do it. It's not like you're just trying to do it and that they're frivolous cases. These are cases, but you just have to understand which ones are they breaking. That way you can argue that fact. Well, a lot of these places, they just say, oh, well, it's dismissed with prejudice. No. Right. So even as a pro se person, they're supposed to give you a lot of leeway when you do that. So, de novo, filing things new, even if it says dismissed with prejudice, well, I'm done. No, you're not done, man. You can still file that, and you can use the site, case citation and precedents for that. If they don't, then they're obviously violating constitutional law. Right. Just like I said,
they're always violating constitutional laws.
Unlawful search or seizure, or I'm supposed to be able to, in the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I'm supposed to have these liberties and these rights. So if you're going to take away those liberties and those rights, then obviously it's unconstitutional.
I mean, Commissioner Jacqueline, hi, Edward. I mean, the amount of evidence that woman has ignored that I presented to her legally in court. I mean, I have a signed letter from the sheriff showing I was never served the original no contact order. That she also was aware of all the text messages between me and my ex that got me arrested, showing that we had an agreed upon visit. And when I showed up for that visit, they had the cops waiting. She's ignored all that evidence. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
They don't want to deal with these perjury things against women. Again, it's giving women a pass. They could do whatever the hell they want. But if you had that and it was the shoe was on the other foot and she was doing that, they would have arrested you still because you're not following the custody order.
Right, right.
And again, I hate that word visitation because I'm not visiting my damn kids.
No.
I'm their parent. I'm not visiting my kids.
Right.
So, and the whole thing is just like, nah. It's again, it's depriving you of your rights, and so that's why you have Title 18 USC 241, 242. Under the color of law, you have these things: kidnapping.
Yeah.
Child trafficking. That's what it is.
Basically, it is.
It's just allowed child trafficking, even though it's to the mother. They always think child trafficking. Ooh, that means that these kids are in the. No, child trafficking means that they're still going from state to state or city to city, and they're allowed to be legally kidnapped. So they're basically trafficked. It doesn't have to be a financial gain,
right?
But in all actuality, if you wanted to say that it is a financial gain, it is a financial gain.
It is
because they ask for child support.
Right.
So they're depriving you of that. Now you're put into a debtor's prison, which violates the Constitution.
Throw you in jail, take your license away here in the state of Washington. Federal government matching them dollar for dollar every bit of child support they collect.
It's actually, and it's not dollar for dollar. It's 66 cents.
Okay.
So it's still a lot. It's over 50%.
Right.
The Fed, so they collect that money, and I guess evidently in the state of Washington. The state of Washington takes 5% of whatever that order is. What the hell do you need to do with 5% of money that you're paying? I'm not paying you and...
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Financial support for my children, for you to take 5% cut, that's a drug deal, man.
It's crazy, dude. And I mean, Washington's already so high in taxes anyway, so it's always just skim, bro.
Well, then they take it back and they say, oh, okay, hey, we collected, $1,100 from Mr. Spencer.
Yeah.
So... for every dollar, then they get 66 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
So what is that? 1,100 times multiplied by 0.66 and whatever that is, that amount. That's what the state gets per month.
Right.
And so that's why it's, I think estimates like 30 or 60 billion annually for child support.
Here in the state of Washington or nationally? Okay.
Yeah. But see, the thing is that, and that's, again, how do they do that? They do that under threat of arrest.
Yep.
So that's duress.
Right.
You're signing this, you're trying to sign this contract from a court that shouldn't exist, that makes up all their rules and regulations, and try to claim that it's legal and lawful.
Oh, family court's the worst out of all the courts.
Well, it's just like the DMV.
Yeah.
If you don't take a breathalyzer, you automatically lose your license. Why?
Yeah.
The facts of unless you have a warrant or something like that, there should be no thing. I don't want to take a breathalyzer.
Right.
Well, then the state or the arresting officer or whoever it is, if they need to prove that, then that's how they get a warrant. Say, okay, well, we need get a sample of your blood or your urine. Okay, by all means. Then once you do that, you do the proper procedures. Then if they catch you doing that, okay, I can understand taking away your license. But the minute you refuse to take a breathalyzer, that doesn't mean you automatically should lose your license.
Right.
Because driving is not a right, or it's not a privilege. It's a right.
Right.
You have a right to drive your automobile.
Right.
As they do it. Some people say it's sovereign citizen stuff, and I try to get away from some of those nut cases that are like that.
All the sovereign citizen people I've come across are pretty nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that they're not right on some of their their things. They're just not completely psychotic, but they do have some points, and you just have to amplify that and figure it out and how to use it in your case. But the fact of the matter is that men operate in this fear because they have so many resources against them. One, they don't get 90% of the resources is geared for women.
Right.
I was turned away from the YWCA, domestic violence.
Oh yeah, that's
because when I went in there, they're like, oh, this we've never had a man come in here. Yeah, that's because
you
they're
guys
underreported.
you guys won't deal with them.
That's one of the reasons why it's underreported.
I mean, my son's mother, until recently, I mean, she had a free attorney through them for like 5 years, and it wasn't until Commissioner Jacqueline Corrupt Eye Edward gave her the okay to move where she lost access to that free attorney. And so, meanwhile, I've dumped thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into attorneys since my son was born, and it's just, it's crazy. So
they have that. So what do? They say, well, take your license away. So, okay, now you have another reason why to take my license away. So if you take my license away, which let's just face it, 90% of jobs require you to have a license in order to go to work.
Right.
So you're just under this debtor's prison.
Yep.
Again, if you don't pay, you're not going to get your license, or you can't get a certification, or you can't get a license to, let's say you want to become a
trucker or whatever.
Attorney,
yeah.
You go and you become a lawyer at school because that's just education to be a lawyer and you know the law.
Right.
But you need a license to be an attorney because the attorney practices law.
Yeah.
So, so once it happens, then they'll not let you have that.
Yeah.
To do that, so it's counterproductive to what they're going to do, and then
threaten to throw you in jail.
Yeah, prison. Jail or prison.
So how is any of that helping me provide for my child, like financially, spiritually, emotionally, all that stuff? I mean,
because they always they do the same thing. They're like, oh, okay, well, you're not gonna, they always it's deflecting from the thing, and they'll tell you like, hey, well, you're not going to get to see your kid if you're in jail or prison.
So crazy.
I don't get to see my kid now. What are you talking about? What's the difference?
I mean, my kid's 6, and I've seen him maybe a total of 30 days, and it's not because I haven't been freaking trying. I mean, again, I moved 500 miles once I found out where he is, and it's just the courts. It's like it's endless. Even though I've never been found, like, the baby mamas used CPS against me twice. I've been cleared both times of CPS. Freaking the courts acknowledge that. Yet for some reason I have to go to these endless DV classes. I have to freaking go take like all sorts of crazy stuff, and it's just like, and endless supervised visits, and it's on and on and on.
I don't know if you're friends with this guy. His name is Jonathan Jones. He's one of my Facebook friends, but he's said talks about fathers' rights movements groups and how they're lacking.
Big time.
It's, whether it's NPO, National Parenting Organization, or the fathers' rights movement, it's all talk the talk. It's not necessarily walk the walk. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have to put forward. And what this Jonathan Jones basically says is like, if you do it, we can get it done. It won't take a year. It won't take 6 months. If men stop doing something, for example, and this is not an extreme, if every man just sat there and stopped paying for child support,
dude,
until I get 50-50 in any state, shared, I understand that. It's not shared necessarily, but it's 50-50, because shared could mean 80-20, 90-10, 60-40. No. Equal. If you're going to put shared, say equal shared parenting.
Shell's 50-50. Shell's the word you want in there, right? Like shall be the standard, basically. Yeah.
So unless a parent is deemed unfit,
right?
You know what I mean? For whatever reason, they can't provide for the morale, welfare, and safety of the child.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or there's some kind of imminent danger
that better be like physical abuse or sexual abuse. Yeah, Besides that, you got no excuses.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. You
know what
I mean? That's like, don't tell me, okay, I got to breathe every single time that I take a breath.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't need to know that. That's a given. You're not going to give somebody, to a Chimo or something like that.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that they still use these things to wield their power and to do it. So incentivization of the child support. But I guarantee you, like I said, if every father just stopped paying child support,
dude,
and then filed complaints in federal court, because federal court supersedes their state stuff. And on top of it, if they just sat there and the third biggest thing is if they filed for termination of parental rights in state.
Yeah.
If they did, if you could do one or all three of those things, But it's not going to help in tens or twenties. It's going to have to be in
thousands.
Hundreds of thousands.
Right.
If every father just stopped what they're doing and said, you know what, I'm not going to put up with the bullshit anymore, and they walked in and they just simply said, hey, I'm going to go file in federal court. This is, I shouldn't be paying child support, and they stopped paying child support at the same time.
Right.
And that this is unconstitutional debtor's prison type thing. And then they also filed in their state termination of parental rights. Do you think 50-50 you can get passed?
Oh, real quick. But,
because then they'd be saying, like, what the hell? What are we doing?
Right.
They caught on to us. We're wrong.
Right. But it's just like trying to get dads to do that.
Yeah.
Step up, I mean, it's like, dads, like,
they shame you and guilt you into that stuff.
Y'all need to get on board with me and Kyle and some other dads. I mean, it is time to, I know it sounds cliche, but it's time to man up. It's time to freaking man up.
You have to commit to it.
Yeah.
You have to do it. You have to go, you have to show support for other men.
Yep.
And show up to their courts, because the more eyes you have watching,
yep,
the less likely they are going to try to step and trample all over your rights.
Right.
So you hold them accountable by knowing that stuff.
Yep.
And representing yourself, or try to get an attorney, or you get into a men's rights group that says this. You're going to pay this attorney if they don't. They're not doing what you're telling them to do. Which that's what they're supposed to do. What you tell them to do.
Right.
Then get rid of them and represent yourself. And there's plenty of fathers that can get out there and help you and do that. Like myself, I could tell you how to do federal stuff.
You've helped me with that stuff,
and teach you how to do state stuff. So, like I said, I haven't gotten my kids back yet, but
you're going to.
Stuff. Yeah, I'm going to.
Yeah, just like I'm getting my son. Like, I don't care.
I'm suing the individuals of the tribe that created this stuff.
Yeah,
like they had courts. And they never notified me.
And I'm going federal with my case, like you said.
And see, same thing with this protection order stuff. They violated my First Amendment because I can't say whatever I want on Facebook. Well, that's that's free speech.
Right.
Everybody has that free speech. It's just like, some people ask me, like, well, aren't you pissed because people kneel during the flag, or they do this? No, man. I fought for
that's
you to
their
have
freedom
those
to
rights.
do so, even if I disagree with it. That's one of the things that makes America great. Like,
it kind of pisses me off, but I can't impose that on there. They're just, some of them are ignorant, or some of them are naive, or some of them have an actual good thing.
Right.
That's why they're doing it. So they've got a platform, so they're bringing the rise to it. But then people don't really look at the issue.
Well, and I want to be able to hear, like, whether I agree with someone or not, I want to be able to hear what they truly think, so that way I know whether I agree with them, what I truly think of their character, all that stuff, I want people to be able to speak freely.
Negotiate and be diplomatic on these things.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't have everything that I want in life. But
right.
You know what? I'm not going to sit there and allow you to dictate to me. You're the government, man. You should be...
you work for us.
You work for us. Plus, you should be kissing my butt, because I'm the only one that served in this thing, and I know what
Right. Yeah.
To uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States means.
And most of these politicians,
they want to sit there and say, "Oh, well, I'm a judge, so I know this." Well, you went to law school for that.
Yeah. Whoop-de-doo. You're another attorney.
Yeah, you're doing keg stands, and you're still doing keg stands out here with your buddies, attorneys, driving around drunk.
Right.
You're going to get off because you're in the good old boys club.
Right. Yeah.
And
that was the vibe I got from Poland too. Just everything she said was was very elitist.
Yeah, she was minimizing. She just like she does in her courtroom. She minimizes that. As a matter of fact, in Poland stuff, she was trying to tell another veteran, and this is a message to all veterans, is that they cannot get their medical or dental or mental health records whatsoever, unequivocally.
Yeah.
There's no categorically, whatever the case, whatever you want to say, no.
Oh, by the way, guys, Poland, I after the forum, I talked to Poland and Casey. They both agreed to come do an interview on the Father's Gospel podcast. I'm hoping Poland comes through and does it, because I'd love to have her on the show. I'm not sure if she'll do it. I'm confident Casey will, and we'll also be having Van Winkle on the show as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to put that out there real quick. But
yeah. So they don't do that. They have men operate out of fear of arrest,
Right.
taking your license away, or throwing you to jail or prison.
Right.
Who wants that? I don't want that. But if I'm gonna stick by my guns and do what's right, that's what I need to do in order to get it done.
Well,
I guess I'll just drive dirty all the time, or what they think is dirty.
Right.
It's not. Again, it's a right that I have to drive my own automobile. It's not a privilege or an entitlement. It's a right that I do that.
Right.
So again, the same thing is like that's how they operate and that's what they do. Until somebody tests that and they come together and they you come together as a fist and you get that safety and strength in numbers, and making them start adhering to the law the way they're supposed to be, rather than having discretion, which they say, oh well, we have discretion at this. No, you don't.
That's such code for
it's again Article 6, the supremacy clause. It says, doesn't say anything in Article 6 of what the supremacy clause. It doesn't say anything about discretion.
Right.
It says you will uphold and defend the Constitution. So if the Constitution is telling you can't do this or you can do that, that's the minimum standard.
It's code for I have discretion to screw you.
Yeah, above constitutional law is God's law, but you know what? That doesn't apply in that sense in the courtroom. But that constitutional law says you will do this.
Yeah,
it doesn't say you may do this. It says you shall do this. You will do this.
Yeah. Well, and all these so-called politicians, let's stop calling them politicians. We should deprogram ourselves from that and start calling what they are, public servants.
Yeah.
And really make that the norm, because it would not only change our thinking, it would really start putting a little much healthy fear inside of them, like reminding them that they work for us.
You're there at the will of the people.
Yeah.
Like in the Marine Corps, I wasn't at the will of the people.
Right.
I was supposed to be defending those sheep.
Right.
I mean, I call them sheeple, and some
right.
of them are. And I get it. Some of them couldn't do it for mental health reasons.
Right. Reasons.
And I'm not knocking those people, but
right.
I really hate those people that come up and say, well, I was thinking about joining the Marine Corps.
Who cares? You didn't join the Marine Corps.
I was thinking about the military. Well, what's stopping you now? Well,
right.
I'm too old. Well, how old are you? Well, I'm 31. Nope, you can still go down there all the way up to the age of 36.
I was going to ask you, 34, 35, something like that.
Yeah, it's
36. So,
it's capped out. But still, as long as you enlist before then. So I didn't see a wave of people down there at MEPS raising their right hand, quoting their oath of enlistment.
Yeah.
So they didn't do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it is a hard life. It's a rough life.
I can only imagine, bro. But
the thing is like I give more respect to my fellow veterans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I put myself on a higher pedestal. It was like somebody's like, oh well, you think you're better than me? I go, yeah, I do. You're a civilian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even on my ID, I wish I had brought my wallet in, but on my ID it says I'm not a civilian.
Okay, what's it say?
It says that I'm military.
Oh, okay.
So even though I'm out and veteran, like that's what people don't understand.
Right.
Or even veterans themselves. It's like once you sign on that contract and you do your,
So it has some legal. It changes
for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Once you join, even whether you do 3 years or 4 years, you're theirs for the rest of life. At any point in time, they can call you back. They don't have to have a draft. They just say, hey, you signed before, you worked before, you're ours. Come back in. There's a lot of DEA and ATF agents that are in there when Iraq started and everything like that. And they were pissed off because they were coming back. And, man, I've been out of the Marine Corps for 6 years. I've been out of the Marine Corps for 8 years. Like, what the hell were you doing? And you're like, they were agents.
Yeah.
In the ATF and DEA.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And they're like, why am I here? And, it was laughable because a lot of them were like corporals. I think that was the highest one is corporal that I had.
Okay.
And I was a sergeant. I was like, and these guys were like 10 years older than me, had been in the Marine Corps before I was, but got out when I got in or something like that. But it was funny to see them come back, and I was like, well, you should have read, that's a contract between you and the United States government.
Yeah.
And so you're theirs for the rest of your government property.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
wow. Okay.
But fact of the matter is that they don't hold the state laws up to, and this is what Casey was getting at too. The first screen that you have to go through to see if it's right or wrong or it's legal or let's just say legal, leave off the moral ethical part, is you have to bounce it off the Constitution.
Right.
And if it has weight and it goes through, it's going to, so to speak, better than yet is you're putting that through the sift, and whatever comes out of the other end is what legally should happen for that state, and that state should do. It's not amplifying the Constitution.
Right.
You don't need to You don't need to amplify the Constitution because that's what the Constitution says. What you should be doing is amplifying state orders and all these other orders to get
the standards
to the standards of the Constitution. Yeah, it's not the other way around.
Right.
You're drawing the constitutional down to have your state law.
Oh, they would love that.
Yeah, they would, because then it'd just be all hell break loose.
Well, hey, brother, I think we should cut it off here.
Yeah.
Dude, 2 hours, bro. Almost 2 hours. We absolutely knocked it out the park. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Before we get out of here, make sure you give us a follow on YouTube, a like, leave a comment. Also follow our Facebook channel. Check out our merch store, the Father's Gospel merch store. All the money we bring in that is going to be used to fund this operation so we can just help build up this movement and restore fathers' rights here in Washington and eventually beyond. So anything you want to say before we get out?
Nope. Semper Fi to all my brothers. And if you're a man, stay in the fight. Keep in the fight. Look me up on Facebook. Send it out. Appreciate it. And more will come, and hopefully we get out of this podcast and we'll be able to show you how to file some of these federal complaints and state complaints. And
we'll definitely do some episodes showing that, bro. We got to do some educational courses for the people.
Yeah, because I get tired of some of these guys. How to do this, and then they spend, out of the 5 or 10 minutes, they're spending like 80% of the time not getting to the point of the thing.
Right, yeah. Just like getting all in their emotions. But anyways, you guys, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. We are going to have a lot more coming from you again, coming for you guys again. Make sure you give us a like, share, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell, and share this with everyone you know. Anyways, I'm Codell. This is
Kyle.
Yep, and God bless you all. Stay safe, and we will see you next episode. Peace.
Hasta lasagna.
Hasta lasagna.